Welcome to TriTech University. My name is Bill Steppen, and today we will be taking a look at what you will want to consider as you start to implement AIM's extensive inventory control so that you can take advantage of all of its business growing benefits. As with all of these webinars, we will start off with the foundation of the module. We'll look into how inventory is added and received and maintained. We'll cover some basic reports to help you get started, and then as always, we'll try and leave some time at the end for any questions that you might have. In regards to those questions, using this GoToWebinar platform as we are, there will be a little control bar that you'll probably have on the side of your screen. It might have already shrunk itself off to the side, but there's a little button there, look like a little red button or orange button with a white arrow that you can use to expand and contract that control panel. And on that panel, there is a box in there where you can post any questions that you might have. I will monitor the questions throughout the course of the webinar, and I will do my best to answer those as they come in. Otherwise, like I said, I'll do my best to try and cover those as well at the end. So without further ado, let's go ahead and switch our view over to my monitor off to the side here where I have a copy of TriTech all set up and ready to go here. Now, if you've attended these webinars before, you probably might have seen some of this detail already, but this is going to be up to date with all the latest changes, all the latest branding, obviously. So we're also doing our best to consolidate these sessions into a half-hour format just to make them a little bit more palatable and easier to fit into the flow of your day. So as we get started with any module, it's always important to consider the setup in the maintenance menus. If we take a look into maintenance and within inventory, there's a lot going on here, but all you really need to get started with inventory are categories and subcategories. If we take a look at maintain inventory categories, you will likely have some categories that have already been established for your industry that you chose when you installed the program, whether that's music or sportsman and outdoor, firearm, things like that, bicycle fitness, vacuum and sewing, hobby shop, whatever you might have. You probably already have some categories here. And I've got a few just to kind of get us started, spanning a variety of different industries just for comparison purposes. So you can kind of get an idea of that. So for example, I've got categories in here of band instruments and guitars and firearms and vacuums and bicycles. Now, the main thing to consider with categories is primarily, first and foremost, they're going to organize your subcategories, but we're not even to that point yet. So thinking about categories, this is primarily also how you're going to establish your tracked assets for bookkeeping purposes. Whether or not you're using the bookkeeping part of AIM is beside the point. You can see that as we kind of scroll and look at these different categories, apart from the category number and the description, there's credit and debit fields here for your bookkeeping. And if you ever add a new category, you'll notice there's a little blurb that pops up here at the top. I apologize if it's a little small on the screen. There should be zoom functions also within that GoToWebinar panel that you can use to zoom in on any portion of my screen as so desired. But you'll notice when I click that add button, in addition to automatically selecting a category number for me, it's going to give me the ability to auto create the default general ledger accounts for any given category. So when it's all said and done, if you're not planning on using Ledger, don't worry about it. If you are planning on using Ledger, I recommend keeping that checkbox enabled so that you don't have to worry about the bookkeeping not working. AIM's ledger is set up in a pretty specific way. It does follow generally accepted accounting principles, but that is a topic for a completely different webinar down the road. Outside of a description and the ledger setup, this is also where you can establish whether or not the products within a given category are taxable or not. You can set up whether it's going to use from your tax authorities, either tax rate 1, which is your primary tax authority, tax rate 2, which is typically only used for our friends north of the border up in Canada. There are also some options for override rates, but basically whichever rate you set up and need to have applied for the inventory within that particular category, you just make a selection there. So for example, if you have like a bar and grill area and you've got alcohol that needs to be taxed at a different rate, apart from your main products, you may have a tax 1 override that you want to use for that type of inventory. Just kind of things like that you want to consider. You can also establish whether or not sales within this category need to be of a certain minimum age, the customer, that being said. Um, and there's a bunch of other functions in here, but when you're first getting started, that's kind of further down the rabbit hole than you might need to delve. So again, keeping it simple: category number, description, tax rate. That's all you really need. Like I said, I've got a whole bunch in here to get us started, just to kind of use as examples. If you have any questions on categories, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, we will move right along. Next thing is subcategories. And when it comes to subcategories, like I said, if you are using an install of AIM for your particular industry, you'll likely already have an assortment of subcategories to get you started. All of these are completely customizable, as you're hopefully picking up on, but let's just look at some of the details that you would need for a subcategory. And again, we're keeping it nice and simple for the purposes of getting started. All you would really need if you are going to add a subcategory is when you click the add button, you pick the category from the previous screen that you want this to be a subcategory of. It'll automatically establish the next subcategory in line, and then you just give it a description. That's all that you really need. There are, as you can see, a slew of other settings here at the subcategory level, because here at the subcategories, you've got the ability to really get down to the nitty-gritty when it comes to things like inventory management and control, and custom barcoding functions, and colorful hang tags for the purposes of advertising and selling your products out on the sales floor, for listing these products online with our active e-commerce functions, for setting up additional printing functions if you need to trigger a specific printer every time you make a sale from this category. So all different kinds of functions here, but again, just to keep it simple, all you need is a category, a subcategory number, and a description. That's it. If you are using our default categories and subcategories, and there are some categories or subcategories in there that you find you will not be needing, it may be very difficult to try and delete those categories or subcategories just because of all the other setup that's in there by default. So what you now have the ability to do is to flag any given subcategory or category as inactive. And by flagging it as inactive, which is also available back in the category settings right here, going forward, anytime you are adding new inventory or making sales or searching or anything like that, any categories or subcategories that are flagged as inactive will not show up. So that way you don't have to worry about trying to get all the different things that are set up in there to try and delete those categories out. If you flag them as inactive, it'll basically just make them fade into the background and you'll never see them again, unless of course you're coming back here into the maintenance menus. So hopefully that helps to simplify things as you're getting started. Now, I'm not going to save the changes there. If you have any questions on subcategories, definitely let me know. We are going to move away from the maintenance side, because that's all that you really need to get started with your inventory, is categories and subcategories. There's obviously things like super categories and barcode label settings and all different kinds of things here, but we will save those topics for further webinars down the road. And all of these webinars are recorded, so you can go back and browse them at your leisure at any time. So now that we've kind of established what we need as a bare necessity to get started with inventory. And this thought process applies to pretty much any module within AIM. We can now go back to the main menu with our home button, and now we're going to dive into the modules menus. And the modules menus are where you go to do your day-to-day type functions and responsibilities within AIM. We'll go into the inventory menu, and within here, we've got options for inventory searches and displays and histories, but we're going to go one step further and we're going to look into another submenu for adding and changing inventory. And within here, there's some other functions, but we're going to be looking at three key functions to get you started: adding inventory, receiving inventory, and changing inventory. So add, receive, maintain, if you want to think of it that way. Whenever you add a new inventory from scratch, you'll click the Add Inventory button, and this is basically how you give AIM the information it needs in order to effectively track this product, know what it is throughout the course of the rest of your store's history. If we want to think of inventory as a file cabinet, you've got a file cabinet, and that is your category of inventory. Within that file cabinet, there may be several drawers, and those are your subcategories. Within the drawers, you have file folders, and you use this add inventory program to add the file folders into the subcategory. And then once you've got that file folder in there, the individual pieces, the individual units, the quantities of inventory in and out are the sheets of paper that you're putting in and out of those folders. So how do we create the folder? We click the Add Inventory button, and this brings the Add Inventory program front and center. As you can see, there's a lot of information in here. AIM's very robust with that. But again, we're just keeping it simple. We're looking at just the bare minimum to get you started, plus what I feel are some key features that any store can take advantage of to just add a little bit extra to the bare minimum and get you going on the right foot. Now, with any of AIM's programs, if you were to try to proceed or otherwise save with any of these forms, you'll notice that little asterisks or little red exclamation points pop up basically on the fields that you need at a bare minimum, just to let you know, hey, you need to fill these in before you can continue. And as you might have noticed, it's only really flashing on these first handful of fields over on the left-hand side: category, subcategory, manufacturer, model, and description. Now that's all that you really need to get started, but we're also going to look at a few other things to, again, just to help you get the most right out of the starting gate. First and foremost, the type of inventory. This is very important. You've got two choices. These are hard-coded. They are what they are. You've got accessories and serialized. Accessories are probably the vast majority of inventory that any store would track. They account for pretty much everything from the smallest item in your store. Let's say if you're a music store, you're tracking picks, you're tracking strings, you're tracking capos, you're tracking drumsticks, you're tracking, all these things that you have bulk quantity of, and those would be perfectly tracked as accessories. You've also got larger items that we could consider big ticket items, but essentially anything that comes right from the manufacturer as having a unique not barcode, but unique serial number stamped on it, you'll likely want to set those up as serialized. Serialized inventory gives you some added functions that you can use to track individual serial numbers, either for the purposes of aging, for the purposes of manufacturer warranties, for the purposes of rental tracking. If you are in the business of renting inventory, then serialized gives you the ability to track exactly who's rented that product, how long they've rented it for, just all different kinds of functions, tracking the rental revenue that specific serial number has brought in for you, as well as any warranty or repair work that you might be doing in-house. That said, if you just wanted to track it straight as accessories, you certainly can do that, but you would lose those benefits. The other thing that it does give you from an accounting standpoint is the ability to accurately cost every individual serial record. With accessory records, those are going to be cost averaged over the course of inventory. So if you have 10 products of an accessory record in stock that you received at $2 each, you receive another 10 in at $2.50, it's going to say that you have an average, or excuse me, you have 20 in stock at an average cost of, if I remember my math, $2.25. So that's basically how it would work. It always goes off of what you have in-house at any given time at its current inventory cost average to figure out the next cost average. If you were to sell out of all 20 and then you receive another 10 in at $2.10 per unit, then they'll show as an average cost of $2.10. Now, beyond type, hopefully that made sense. If you have any questions, again, let me know. Beyond type, this is where we start to get into things that we've already been looking at, category and subcategory. So you'll notice here at the category level, these are now going to be in alphabetical order. They're not going to be in category number order like we saw in the setup area, the maintenance area. So we would basically just pick the most appropriate category, and then based on your category that you've picked, you'll see whatever subcategories you have established for that category. If you need to, on these screens, you can always press the F6 key on these drop downs, and that will bring up basically a window of these settings in most cases, so it's a little bit easier to see them all in one shot. You can also do a type search. So if I type in, let's say, golf, you can see it drills down to just the categories where I have the word golf in that listing. So remember, F6 is your friend. And if you're coming to us from version 11 or older, where F6 was probably your main staple for doing searches like this, just know that the F6 functionality is greatly expanded within AIM. Now, getting on to just, again, the bare minimum plus a few extras. At a minimum, you'll select type, category, and subcategory. You'll select a manufacturer. We haven't talked about manufacturer yet. There is a maintenance area where you can go into the inventory maintenance and work with and establish all of your different manufacturers, but you can also add them on the fly right here. So if I put in BMX, that will remember BMX going forward as an established manufacturer without me having to go out and add it to the list manually in the maintenance area. Here at the model field, this has always been kind of a point of confusion. When it comes to the model field, ideally what we want is the model number from the manufacturer for this product. If you can't find that, not a big deal, but whatever you put into the model number will automatically become what's called the SKU. So if I put in bike, just for having something in there, you'll notice as I tab my way through, bike automatically goes over into the SKU and also the MPN, the manufacturer part number field. Now again, at a bare minimum, all that we have left need to fill in is a description. This is what will show by default on your sales receipts to your customers, on your inventory reports, just things like that. So you'll want to have a nice, easy to read description here. As you can see, there's all kinds of space in there, but just something that's nice and simple and to the point so that when you're glancing at the receipt or glancing at your reports, you know immediately what that product is. Now, that's the bare minimum. What I also recommend to consider is knowing exactly how the SKU and the model and the barcode and all of that relate to each other. We're going to be talking about that here momentarily. And then also some other settings that are going to be super easy to fill in and also very easy to just expand on the functionality of your inventory tracking. So apart from SKU, which is just your in-house stock keeping unit that you'll use to track this product, you can also associate this with a primary vendor that you use to supply this product. The vendors can be set up in your inventory menus as well as your accounts payable menu. But if you need to establish vendors on the fly, that same F6 key in here brings up a select vendor window where you can then click the add button, and then you can add a vendor as you go. So no, again, no need to jump out of the program, go into the vendor area, set up the vendor, and then come back and fill in everything that you've been filling up to that point. F6 is your friend. Apart from selecting a primary vendor, let's just go ahead and say Acme Wholesalers for this one. A vendor item number is that vendor's catalog number. So whatever you've got in there, if you need to contact that vendor, give them the item number that they use, regardless of whatever you're using for SKU or model, because that's probably how they're going to easily look it up in their inventory structure. So again, that's just the relation there. This is that vendor's catalog number for the same product. You can track multiple vendors per product, and each can have its own unique item number, catalog number. Below that is the barcode, and whatever the barcode is on the actual product, that's what you'd like to scan into this field, assuming you have a barcode scanner. I highly recommend a barcode scanner if the industry that you are in has products that are primarily barcoded from the manufacturer. This will reference the SKU, which is within the model. So let's talk about this structure again just a little bit. If you can't find a model number, then I recommend using the barcode as the model number, because at least that way it's something that you can scan right into your inventory record, makes it very easy to key in your inventory. If by chance there is no registered barcode on the product, you can also have AIM generate you an in-house record number, what we call an ISS or in-store SKU. By clicking that, that will automatically fill in what we call an ISS with a unique number. It'll never be the same number twice. I've already filled in bike, obviously, so it's got that over there. If I were to take this and this out, you can see it's basically filling in what we had in as the model number over into the SKU. But that is the end all be all. If you have no idea what to use for model, click the ISS button, and that way you'll be good to go. These details can always be adjusted later on if necessary. If you do find that there is in fact a model number from the manufacturer, you can use the Change SKU Model Serial program to adjust and update model numbers. Now, again, basic things just to get you started as we kind of head into the turn 3 and 4 of our webinar here. If you'd like to establish a min and max quantity, feel free to do so with these first 2 of 3 fields. You can ignore the third field for now. So if we put in 2 and 4 here, as I track inventory, and if I fall below my minimum, the inventory reorder report within AIM will bring this item up within that vendor's listing to let me know I need to order enough to get me up to the maximum. So in this case, if I'm sitting at a quantity of 1, it would say I need to order 3. If I'm sitting at 0 in hand, I would need to order 4. You can put in whatever you want there. AIM can also generate min and max numbers accordingly based on sales performance over time. We'll talk about that in another webinar down the road. Again, this is bare minimum stuff. You'll notice I'm skipping a lot of fields, but the other things I recommend filling in, if at all possible, are cost. Whatever you pay to the vendor to buy a unit from the vendor of this item, put that into your cost, and then whatever you're going to turn around and sell it for, put that into the hour price field. Maybe I'm going to sell this for $150. You can also fill in the retail if you the suggested retail price if you have that. Let's say that's $175, and keeping in mind the F6 functionality, if you are in the hour price field and you'd like to calculate that either as a certain profit margin above cost or as a certain percentage of retail, F6 allows you to do that. Whatever price field you're in, where it's a selling price, you can calculate that. So if I say I want this to be, let's say a 20% margin above cost, I can just put that in and you can see a calculated selling price of 125 in that example. If I re-hit F6 and say I want to sell this at 80% of retail, you can see it calculated that for me as well. You may need to go back and then just do some finagling if the numbers aren't coming out to nice round numbers like we have here. Whatever you want to do with that, that's a nice way to get within the ballpark. Now, outside of that, that's all that you really need. There are also attributes that you may want to consider. We will talk about attributes on the 26th of this month if you're going to attend live. We'll talk all about what attributes are, how you can take advantage of them, the attributes that you might already have in your system. But attributes are basically extra fields dependent on your inventory category. So in the case of a bike like this, I can track the color as an attribute field. If this is no longer a bike, let's say this is a firearm, that's just a little bit different. You'll notice when I go back to the attributes, that no longer is tracking color, it's now tracking caliber. So basically extra fields that you can set up in there. Once you've filled in, again, what I consider to be the key functions or the key elements of any given new item, type, category, subcategory, down through description, SKU, vendor, barcode, cost and our price, and any attributes, click the proceed button. And then it's taken all that detail and put it into the other tabs within new inventory. So all the SKU information, attribute, barcode is on the SKU tab. All the pricing information is found on the locations tab, broken down into any locations that you have. This is also where you can go in and put in any starting quantities. If this were a serialized item, then this quantity field would be grayed out, and I could go to the cereal tab and put in my starting cereals there. But that's basically the gist of it. Let's go ahead and save this. And then to receive quantities of that going forward, we would go right to the receive inventory program. So let's go ahead and put in that ISS 1001. You can also scan the barcode into that SKU field, and that will reference that same item. Again, this being an accessory item, it'll just ask me for the quantity that I'm receiving. Let's say I'm receiving not 100. Let's say I'm just receiving 5. I can also, if I need to, update the receiving cost and the selling price and any other price details as I'm receiving it. If I need to change the vendor that I'm receiving it from, I can do so as well. Basically, this is where I can go to receive any and all items within inventory. If this is not an accessory item, I'm just going to do a same F6 function to search in that SKU field for other items that I have in here. Let's say I'm not receiving that accessory item. Let's say I'm receiving a serialized item like this flute. So I'll pull that in. I just double clicked right on the flute, and you'll see it's now asking me for a serial number. If your inventory is packaged in such a way that there's 2 barcodes on every box, basically package, you could scan the barcode for the model line first into the SKU field. It'll then ask you for the serial number. And if there's a barcode representing the serial number, scan that, and it'll put the serial number right into the serial field. And then again, you could go in and update any receiving prices, selling prices at that time. And then you just hit save, and it'll go right into your inventory and it's ready for sale. If you are a firearms dealer, it will also pop up the gun book information, which we'll do a webinar on that as well. But it will automatically add it to your acquisition record right then and there so that you don't have to worry about your A&D book being out of sync with your live inventory. If you need to make any adjustments of inventory at any time, your change inventory program is your one-stop shop for that. You'll simply put in whatever you want to edit, scan the barcode, use F6, and it'll look very similar to what we saw in the add inventory program, where you just go and you make any adjustments that you need. The one lone exception to that would be the model number or the SKU, and that's where you would use the change SKU model serial program. So we could say it's no longer going to be ISS 1001, now it's going to be Hi Mom. So we can go in there. Let's actually close that just to make sure that that doesn't cause any weirdness with the same program referencing or the same model being referenced in 2 different programs. You can see I've got a check mark to change the model and change the SKU. I'll go ahead and hit save on that. And now if I go back to change inventory, it's no longer ISS 1001. Nope, it's going to be Hi Mom. And it will have made all of those adjustments. So that's the basic gist of inventory. Again, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Inventory has been tracked by countless programs over the years, even outside of programs, just basic pen and paper resources, things like that. But AIM has a wide variety of detail to help you take that control to the next level. So keep that in mind as you're getting started with it. A few reports that I'd like to mention just as we wrap up our session here. AIM has a plethora of reports. So I encourage you to explore them at your leisure. If we look into the inventory menu here of reports, there are reports on current inventory, sold inventory, consignment inventory, physical and trade-in records, short and long-term rentals, just all different kinds of things like that. Just a few key ones to help you get started. In the current inventory menu, there's an inventory count by category report. This report you can run at any time to see exactly what you've got on hand at any given time for any category, subcategory, manufacturer, whatever you wanting to drill that down to. It's going to be a great way to say exactly this is what we have in stock. On the same menu is the inventory reorder report. So with those min and maxes established, you can run this at any time. And by default, it'll only show you the items that you are sitting at where the quantity is below the minimum, and it would recommend a quantity to get you up back to maximum. It'll also by default show you 12 months of sales history. So you can very easily see the trends of those sales over the course of the past year. And that way you have the end-all control over exactly how many you want to order. AIM will make the recommendation. AIM can adjust those ordering numbers as I've kind of alluded to, but when it's all said and done, you have the final say in where your business dollars are being spent. So that's kind of the current inventory reports, just one or two on the sold inventory side. There's a sold inventory by category report, which is a very powerful report. This gives you margins and totals and just all different kinds of values for whatever date range you run this for. This is an informative report, a historical report that you can run again at any time. It doesn't have to be within the past day or week or month or anything like that. You can run it for any time frame you want. As well as sold inventory by vendor, a similar report, but now more by vendor rather than by category. If you wanted to kind of take a look at sales before you give the vendor a call and say, hey, I'm looking to place an order. So very key information as you're looking to expand on either expand on using AIM on your day-to-day functions, or like we're talking about here, just getting started. That kind of concludes the kind of the scripted information that I have on the webinar. By all means, if you have any questions, let me know. I haven't seen any come in just yet. Hopefully I haven't put you all to sleep, but stick around because we are going to be just going through a plethora of webinars over the coming weeks and months and even into years. Stay tuned to the member portal where you most likely registered for this webinar, because you'll be able to see all of the upcoming webinars a month or two in advance. You'll be able to check out all the recordings that will be available there as well. So if you have any questions at all in the interims between webinars, give us a call. We're always just a phone call away. If it's the middle of the night and you just want to reach out to us, the member portal also has the ability to log an inquiry right into our computer system. It's much more efficient than email. It's the first thing that we see the next business day, and it goes right into our call logs. So there's no fear of that email getting lost, as can be the case nowadays with inventory, or rather email inboxes just filling up over the course of an hour, let alone an entire day or weekend. So I encourage you to use those resources. That said, I don't see any questions coming in, so I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this inaugural 2021 webinar up. We'll encourage you all again to register for any upcoming webinars on any questions you have, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for continuing to believe in TriTech for all of your business solutions, and we will see you throughout the rest of the year. Thanks so much, and I hope you can make it a great day.